there were times where you could talk to the person, because 90% of the time, the person that comes to the station that's irate is more irate about the way they were treated than what actually happened,
or actual alleged misconduct.
The lack of explanation. Like I got very few mouth beefs in my day because I would dust people off and explain my actions. What stuck in my craw always about internal affairs, and it wasn't really them making the call, granted, but if someone in command staff gets in trouble for the same thing that a lower rank does, they should get equal or more of a punishment, because if anybody knows better, they know better.
Welcome back to the IA Got A Police podcast here with your host, Marlon Marrache. It's December 29, end of the year. We're getting ready to wrap up 2025 and another banger. We're going to go out with LAPD is in the house again, Code 6. All guests are special. We already established that about 2 years ago. Don't forget to subscribe. I always forget about saying that. But with that being said, I kind of want to brag a little bit, and Mariano, you can join me on this because you would know this better than I do. You just retired. You live here still in California. I retired 3.5 years ago, and I live in California. And right now it's what, like 67, 70 degrees?
Yeah, about that.
It was windy.
Windy where I live. It was really
a little cold.
windy.
We
Chilly.
consider that cold.
Yeah.
But you know we have partners that are out. Let's see. So let's start with the list. Texas, Tennessee.
Yep.
Right? Idaho.
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 Yeah.
And lately it's been Missouri.
Missouri's, okay.
I got well, you know who you are, first of all. But I recall the Kansas City Chiefs game 2 weeks ago. Bro, it was like 28 degrees.
I just got a call yesterday from an old partner who's in Minnesota.
Okay. Ooh.
And he said with the wind chill factor, it was a -11. I'm
okay.
Like, yeah, no thanks.
Come on.
Thank you.
And he went to Minnesota to live, and that's...
Yeah, she went to Minnesota, and she lives there, yeah.
Okay. And then the latest we've been talking about is Montana, maybe?
Oh, for me, Wyoming, that's right.
Wyoming.
If I had my druthers, that's where I'd go.
Okay. Got it.
But not for the winners.
Thanks for showing up.
No problem.
I really appreciate you coming down and having this conversation. And we're going to get into a lot of stuff. But before we even get into anything about police-related functions, internal affairs, all that good stuff, I got to know, right? Inquiring minds want to know, did that UPS driver job that you had prepare you for the academy and or to get into law enforcement? What do you think?
I would say absolutely. There was time management. That was huge that we'd had to do there.
Okay.
I started off on load side, busting your hump, loading up trucks, getting that physical labor, getting in there. And then I was a UPS for, I think, almost 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I went from load side to full-fledged driver at the end. And you're given your route, which I was a pickup driver, so I didn't really have my own route, but whatever other drivers wanted to cut off their route would come down to my truck. So I didn't really have an established neighborhood. I would be like all over the place. So,
okay, so you didn't have like a route.
I didn't have my own route. I was what they called a pickup driver.
Yeah, man, I was going to have a little fun and ask you, dude, did at any time, like in your route, did like someone like go off on you and get all 415?
Happened all the time. Happened all the time.
Can you think of one that you can reflect on as we're having this conversation where you're like, dude, I'm just a UPS driver trying to drop off your friggin' merchandise?
Sure. This happened to be the wife of a very well-known MLB player.
Okay.
And she happened to like to order things that were COD. So we'd have to collect the money, on a COD delivery.
Cash on delivery, baby.
But they were in a gated community. And
okay.
Even within the gated community, she had her own gate around her house. And I'd ring the doorbell and no answer. And pretty soon I'd just say, well, no delivery because nobody paid for it, right? So I'd take it back in the truck. And sure enough, she would call the hub and complain about not getting her package. And I said, well, it's a COD package. What do you guys want me to do, And so this went on and on for weeks, and finally I caught him outside washing his car, and I said, "Hey," and he gave me this apologetic look, like he knew my pain, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll sign for it, blah, blah, blah." So he signed for it, and it finally got to the point one day where I just hopped the fence, banged on the door, boom, 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 and she came to the door all frightened. I was like, "Hey, if you want your packages, you have to pay for them if they're COD." And she did it, and of course called the hub, complained again. But it's just how it was at that particular house. It was never going to fix itself.
And it was just that house.
Just that house.
Did you guys knew, like all the drivers? You guys knew. Oh
yeah.
You guys.
I think that's why they gave them.
You got to hop the fence.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would definitely think to myself, time management, right? Because you have to get you got to get your route done.
Yep.
Right. And at some point, besides that particular experience, yeah, man, you're going to get on the job, and people don't like cops.
And you need people skills too for that. Everybody loves their UPS driver, right? Especially back then. It was the premier package delivery place back in the day, And nowadays you have like people just running up and dropping packages off at doors, which we did most of too. But for the most part, it was always service with a smile with UPS. It was, people got to know you. Even when you weren't their regular driver, they saw the uniform, they saw the truck.
Yeah.
They knew that their item was coming, and they were happy to get it, and as long as it wasn't smashed, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you think that particular kind of service got watered down as the years have gone by? I mean, you're talking what, 25-something years ago?
Oh, yeah.
30 years ago.
There was, I think there's so many players in the game now that, and it's just, nobody really has the time. They're like just pumping it out left and right. Like with the, advent of Amazon.
Amazon took
Temu,
over, bro.
And man, these people just, I can't believe how much packages are just out there all the time,
Absolutely. Mariano, again, thank you for coming. Look, let's get into a lot of good stuff. You're an LAPD alum, and so am I. And it's just, I love having our alums because we can relate to a lot of the disciplinary process by which has been implemented, decades before we came on.
Yep.
And I've always wondered, right, and which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, is I always feel like it's not just me. I would think you as well, or any of our colleagues, or just nationwide, we want to make this process better. But for some reason, and you might know this, is the punishment's not really the penalty. It actually becomes this process by which you have to wait, and you feel as though like people abandon you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree to that to a large extent. With my experience, especially like when you're almost treated like when everybody can, word gets out, rumor control. Yeah. Everybody knows when you're riding a beef, and you become like persona non grata. People don't want to work with you specifically.
Yeah.
They like, oh, I just don't want that. I don't want to be under that magnifying glass that officer's under right now. You know what I mean? So, and then your aspirations of going to different units or whatnot are dashed because you can't do anything until that situation's dealt with. So.
Yeah. Let's go back to the academy days. Shout out to 10A95.
10A95.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. 2 classes in October of 1995.
Correct.
How many classmates did you have in your class?
I want to say we started with they were pumping them through back then. We started with 103, I think, and then I think we graduated 82 or 83.
Right, but you were at 100 day one.
Yeah, they were huge classes back then.
Interestingly enough, and I realized this, and you watch news, you watch what the current events that's going on with hiring with LAPD. I know they were asking for like $4.1 million, and city council's like, well, we're only going to give you $1 million now. We'll give you some money later. And then I think there was a report saying that, hey, the largest class in LAPD was 54. That just happened not too long ago. And then I think to myself, okay, so, and by the way, the chief did say that 83, north of 8,000, let's just keep it there, right? And I don't want to get your thoughts on this, is I think it was 8,300 is what the chief said, and they have not seen those numbers since 1995. But what the report, or what they're not telling you, is that in 1995, 1996, 1997, and me in 1998, bro, we were getting like 1,000 applicants a month.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was, let me repeat that, close to, you know what? Push the BS button. Call me out on my bullshit, but I'm going to say that there was probably approximate to 1,000. You know how much you got to get 100 classmates?
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, it was 2 100s in the month of October in 1995. Yep. Sad as this may sound, we're probably not going to get those numbers ever again. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. We got to remember is like the city had just for the police department had just come off of a hiring freeze, because I tried getting in at 21 and a half and I screwed that up, and then there was a hiring freeze.
Right.
So I didn't get my chance again until I was 23-ish, right?
Okay.
That's when I came on. So then so they had taken, like, they were just waiting to open up the floodgates so they could hire.
Correct.
And they hired.
Yes.
We had people coming, like vets coming back from like Desert Storm.
Correct.
And, like, coming out. We had a lot more vets, I believe, then than we do now.
Okay.
That were coming out looking for jobs in law enforcement. And, for me, it was something that I always wanted to do since I was a kid. Since I was about 13, I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I just think that the cultural situation, I think law enforcement was still looked on very much as a positive light, as a career. And then there was, there's also the family business, so to speak. Lots of people said, well, my grandfather was, my dad was, I'm going to be, that kind of thing. You saw that more and more often now. Yeah. I don't think it's pushed as much these days.
And I would like to add to that with the saying that social media has changed a lot of the perception, right? The lens of the community, or the lens of a young guy, that 23-year-old Mariano, or, the 29-year-old that came out of the Navy. And I was influenced by my best friend. Shout out to Rick Krinsky, 696. That's my guy. That's my dude. That's my man. But my point is that now law enforcement is at a platform, and it's so sensationalized and more negative than it is positive. I mean, of course, you and I can talk about the summer of love, 2020 with George Floyd. That probably declined. Like, I don't want to be a cop and go through that. And then the other thing I was thinking about is, and maybe you can chime in as well, is, well, hold on a second. If I'm going to be a cop and I'm going to chase bad guys, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to do traffic stops. And
exactly.
If I'm going to go chase bad guys, back in our days, dude, a Frank, that was it, dude. Or you run plates. Oh, shit. Code 37. Let me request an airstrip and a backup, and here you go. And you're like, I can't wait to get that. Remember when you used to come in with the clipboard and you sign for the subpoena?
Yeah.
For you to go to CCB?
Well, I was in the Valley at the time.
The Valley, yeah. Well, we'll go to San Fernando. We'll go to San Fernando. But whatever, we're a court, and we're like, we're getting ready to testify. And they're like, they took a deal, and now they're going away. That's great. But today, hell, by the time you book them for that 480D, right, that stolen vehicle, dude, by the time you get back to the station, they're released.
Oh, yeah.
So my point is just that what is the incentive for someone risking their lives for what? I want to say today is what, 80 grand, 90 grand to start? Maybe close to 100. I think it's like 80. Let's just say flat out it's 80K. Really? I'm going to take a bullet for 80K.
But we did it for less than that.
And we did it for less
than
half
than that.
Half in that, and we didn't even think about what I just described. Would you agree with me?
Oh, obviously. I mean, so like
besides the fact that you wanted to do this, but
well, yeah.
Kids nowadays think more than what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, so
thoughts?
I agree with that, and I think part of that has to do with the advent of the cell phone camera, right? Mm-hmm. So back in our day, the big thing was, the Rodney King thing. That was, caught on videotape, right? And that's when people around the nation really got a peek at, and that was, by all accounts, very mismanaged, horrible thing to happen.
Yes, 100%.
However, it kind of pulled back the shade a little bit on how ugly police work can be, right? Yeah. And it's something that, generations before us, it happened on the daily, and then all of a sudden as cell phone technology came and more people are stopping and thinking they're going to be able to sell that video to whatever, TMZ, whoever they're going to sell the video to, is, now everybody's filming, right? Looking to get everything. Any police officer makes a traffic stop, there's some bystander filming it, just in case.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, opened a lot of people's eyes to, like, hey, like,
Do I really want to do
Do
this?
I want to do it? Do I want to put my life out there?
Yeah.
You know, do I want to risk what, my friends, my family, like kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I'm going to get married, have kids, and don't really want to put my family through all that. Yeah, no, interesting point. Hey, man, look, our common friend, shout out to Hector, right? Our boy, Arena, man. That was my guy. Super good dude. When I was fresh stripes sergeant in Pacific, shout out to the 14. Hector worked for me, and he was a good dude, man. And you know what? I appreciate him getting a hold of us. And I got to ask you, did you even know there was a podcast of an IA guy or internal affairs?
Oh yeah, I knew about it.
Okay.
When he told me about it, I go, yeah, I know Marlon. I watch his videos, and I got to see like some of your prior videos, guys that like Craig Marquez, for instance.
Yes.
Real fun, articulate guy. I used to work with him in narcotics, and Charlie Bennett, another guy. I used to work with him at SS.
Chuck.
And if there's someone that can tell a story, it's Charlie Bennett.
Chuck is the best. I'm curious to know, and I asked this only because you and I can agree that internal affairs has had a negative stigma attached to that function even before our times. What did you think about when you're thinking, well, Marlon's doing something with internal affairs? What were your first thoughts? Why would we even talk about IA?
Well, I think that's really the hook that got me to watch the video in the first place. Like, what are they talking about? And then there was guys on there talking about their experiences over throughout their careers and how it impacted their careers, impacted their lives, So it was, very interesting. And it's kind of like, okay, it's a different aspect of it. You know what I mean? When you're on the job, you're told from your training officer, don't talk to them. Don't talk to them.
Right.
Get a rep. All that stuff is just ingrained in you. And I know it's not it's like kind of the dirty word, but there was the code of silence that was on the department, and you just didn't talk, unless you were ordered to do so. And
and I'm curious to know, if I may ask, about you. Here you are with 103 classmates. Did anybody from internal affairs come in and say, "Hey, this is who we are"?
I seem to think to remember they did come and do a little speech, but not. It wasn't anything anybody really tuned into.
It wasn't impactful.
Nobody came on the job to be an IA investigator. They didn't, And I mean, it was the farthest thing from my mind.
Right.
But
I think you and I were busy just trying to pass our LDs.
Just get through that.
And get to your LDs and get to graduation, right? And I asked that for several reasons. One is because, do you think that maybe we're doing a disservice to recruits for not explaining what this process is like? Because we leave it up to the culture and to FTOs, right, our field training officers, to tell us that, hey, you know what, they're Blue Falcons, man. Don't fucking talk to those guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it should be a little bit. I mean, I don't know what they do today in the academy, but
Well, they don't.
They should. I think they should. They should
Right.
actually explain to them what the process is, and like what's going to happen. In case something comes, like a big deal comes out. Order everybody, not to talk, and all of a sudden that's when you start to really feel what did I get myself into?
Hey, man, someone walks in the front lobby, I get a supervisor request at a traffic stop, or I get a supervisor request at a radio call, and they want to make a complaint because of what you and your partner did. Guess what? Depending on the circumstances, I'm going to have to cut a face sheet. Cutting a face sheet to us means doing an IA, right? And explain the whole process. At some point, internal affairs is going to get it. They're going to determine if they're going to keep it in the investigator or it's going to come back to the division. And you got to know your peace officer bill of rights. You got to call LAPPL, get yourself an attorney. Boom, 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 boom. Right. After that, at some point, they're going to email you, sit you down, and ask you a whole bunch of questions. Meet with your attorney. And then it's going to go to the adjudication level. Someone from your command is going to adjudicate it, whether it's going to be sustained, meaning it happened, occurred, or unfounded, meaning it didn't occur, or exonerated. Yeah, you were there, you did everything, but you did everything by the book, by policy. But guess what? You are a temporary employee, which means that you don't even have to go through that whole process. You can just get fired at will.
Yeah.
And I think that's the missing piece. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I think that, but they, okay, so we were just talking earlier how we're going through this slump of hiring, right, for this city.
Yeah.
and you want people thinking they're temporary employees. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't want to apply.
Yeah, you're making an investment into this career.
Yeah.
I think that at minimum, the city should make an investment in trying to guide these people, like these, new recruits and whatnot,
Yes.
on, what to expect, at least at the minimum.
100%. I totally agree with you. Hey, man, on that note, right, here you are working. Let me ask you this. You were a sergeant for more than 15 years, right? 14 for you. I know we talked about this. I made sergeant in 2007. You made in 2009.
I reverted back to D2. So
okay, so you're dual status. Shout out to my dual stat. So did you say the hell with being a sergeant and you went back to make detective?
Kinda, yeah. And
Yeah.
what's kind of funny about that whole thing was I never even wanted to be a detective. And I had a partner when I was working, Foothill Gang Unit, and she pushed me to take the detective exam. I had just gotten married, she knew I was a P2 dog because of a beef that I had. I could never pick up P3.
Okay.
So I would just I'm a P2 dog for life kind of mentality, and having fun, going to work every day. And she really pushed me to take the test. And I was like, I don't want to take the test. And literally took me kicking and screaming. And I went and took the test, and lo and behold, I passed. And Marlon, when I tell you I passed that test, that bell curve saved my bacon. So I got a passing score and went on to, the interview process. And that's when I really tried to prepare myself.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing well. I think I banded band 6.
Okay.
And, made detective. And my first day is that, they put me on Wilshire Autos, and I was like, what am I doing here? Some lady left her cell phone in her car, and it was gone when she came back. And I'm like, what do they want me to do with this, And so I was hating life. I had a great team on the autos table, but it wasn't my jam, I'd just come back from working 6 years on a gang unit, So pretty soon the gang detective, D3, was looking to hire my partner, who was, I was a probationary D1. He didn't want to talk to me, right? But he needed a Spanish-speaking D1. So my partner pushed me to him, said, hey, I don't want to do it, but this guy's got gang experience. And I was like, please take me,
Right.
So I went to Wilshire Gangs and had the best time there. One of the best supervisors I ever worked for was that D3, and just went out, and did my detective thing, investigating the bad guys that I was, back then was still.
That was your jam.
That was my jam for a while. And then, so I loved it. Even the drive to Wilshire I didn't even look at, from where I came from, that's a drive. It's no easy way to get there.
I cannot believe you did that, bro.
But, I loved everybody I worked with, had the greatest time. It was.
Right. At some point you took the sergeant exam, right?
Yeah. So while I was there, I'm like, hey, one of the big influence in my life was this retired detective that opened up a gun store where I live. And he was a dual status detective sergeant. And he was like, oh, you got to get your dual status. And he kind of, drilled it into my head.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, why the hell not? Yeah. Once they promoted me to detective, I figured, okay, now I'm no longer persona non grata, from my beef days,
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I did okay, enough to get hired. I think I was band 13 or
something like that.
Yeah. And I made it, and I went and did my, actually in between then and there, I had made it into SIS. I'd made D2 into SIS, and wasn't there too long, but for other reasons. But when I left there, I deferred my sergeant promotion.
Okay.
And they surpassed me on the list. I took my name off the list for ratification.
Okay.
And when I found out that the dream job wasn't really the dream job, got hit the road, I put my name back on the list, and then that next DP I was promoted. So
right, here you are back in the streets.
Yeah.
L120 or L60.
Yeah.
You're at the bottom
of the list.
Graveyard.
Yeah. Well, I felt bad for one of my other partners who was a newbie.
Yeah, we call it mornings, but people call it graveyard.
I really enjoyed that shift, but a buddy that at the tattoo policy, he's like, please let me work morning watch. I'm like, all right, I'll take the hit. I'll take days. And out there in the San Fernando Valley during the summer, man, poof.
Oof.
So
yeah.
So that's where I started. I think it was West Valley Day Watch Supervisor, L130 or whatever.
L130, man. Here you are. Mariano, so early in your career, we were talking about this before we started recording. You were a subject of an internal affairs complaint investigation, and one of the allegations was my favorite because people don't even know what this is: conduct unbecoming an officer or unbecoming conduct of an officer, what we call Cubo.
Cubo.
And so talk to me, man. Tell us, I suppose, like anything else, lessons learned, right? And as you sit here and we're sharing this story, if you can reflect and maybe perhaps you can let us know, is there any accountability? One, two, could you handle that particular part of this investigation different? Or, lessons learned. Talk to me.
So in my particular situation, I was assigned Hollywood Division. I was pretty new there. And when one night, a couple guys, my partner and I had lost a BFMV suspect.
Okay.
And, at the end where everybody's breaking up, we got approached by mid-PMs. We were actually the foot beat, and we were working mid-PM watch hours to do a crime issue. So we got approached by the mid-PM guys, and they didn't know us at first, at roll call, but then, for whatever reason, they said, hey, these guys are going to have a buyout after work.
Okay.
And it wasn't new to me, choir practice, something that I wouldn't say engaged on the regular, but I'd engaged in before.
Of course. Got to go to a buyout.
Yeah. So, it was in a parking lot up at the John Anson Ford Theater, which at the time none of us knew was the tree,
The tree.
Yeah, the tree.
Okay.
So, and for those that don't know, the tree is where the Hollywood burglars would meet up and plan their capers.
Oh, okay.
So it was not, you're not supposed to go up there, but none of us knew it because time had passed. Nobody warned us about it. And so anyway, end of watch came, and, we went in trail up the hill and had a couple brewskis, and sit there and banter, whatnot. It was really not what I thought was a big deal.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, unbeknownst to us, the supervisor that was on mid-PMs got a little hinked up about it, and went back to the station and kind of sort of gave some partial information to the watch commander. And then the watch commander kind of thought about it a while, and he decided to email some Vice guys, because Vice were up there too. So he emailed the Vice OIC, and it started this big ball of wax that couldn't be stopped at that point. So when the big thing they thought was it was right in the midst of the Rampart scandal. So right off the bat, the captain at Hollywood's thinking that he has a rogue crew, just like Rampart does, and we were up there planning capers. And so, when it all came out, we got read in, whatever. And, I was caught dead to rights. I admitted what I did. I'm like, yeah, I was up there. I had a couple of beers. And, what are you going to do to me, right? And so, initially it was 2 days. I'm like, I can live with that. And we had a certain chief at the time that was not going to let that go by as 2 days, and lined it out and, said he's getting 10. So I was like, wow,
10 days at the beach.
10 days, yeah.
That's what they call it.
Actually, I went to Miami and with my sister on vacation, but
it's actually 10 days at the beach.
yeah, but nonetheless, it was, at the time, I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Right.
Right. And I think we were victims of circumstance and whatnot. But
yeah, climate.
What I learned was, if you're trying to make P3, a fresh Cubo on your wrap doesn't look good. Yeah. And there was that there's unwritten rule about
the 5-year parole.
5-year parole, and so I tried. I think I quit at like 13 P3 rolls. I'm like, because I would still go to work and give 100%, and I had what I thought was a great reputation, so I kept trying to make P3, and I just couldn't get it, and I went all over the place. So that's when I had resolved myself to the fact that I'm happy P2. I'm just going to do what I like to do,
right.
Keep on trucking, make my money with overtime
and
off-duty gigs,
Yeah.
So ended up, like I said earlier, after the 5-year parole, applied to make detective, and did that process and made it. And so what I learned from it was, at the time, there is a parole period you're going to experience. Don't expect to pick up any promotions, and I get it. But at the same time, it was at every P3 interview, oh, you're a great butt. You're a great butt.
Yeah.
And then when I made detective, they asked me about it, and I explained it, and I learned my lesson, fell on my sword, all that thing.
Well, first and foremost, big shout out to you for accountability. I don't think there is that many lessons learned from this Cubo, right? Yeah. This conduct unbecoming, which, by the way, I suppose somewhere in that rationale, it says that, what, it's I refer to it like it doesn't look good.
Nope, it didn't.
So we're in the business of not looking good, which sucks, right? I always say that when I teach internal affairs. Hey, when you think of conduct unbecomings, the definition is something along the lines like if it reflects very negative on the eyes of the department, the community, and all the lenses, the stakeholders, then you know what? It's just very unfavorable. Kind of ruins your, not just your reputation, but it kind of makes us all look bad. So essentially what you're saying is that we're in the business of, it just doesn't look good. Well, here's what I challenge is, what if it were somewhere else?
Right.
Let's say you picked another location. Are we really in the business? It doesn't look good. So essentially, it doesn't look good because we went to that location, but it looks good if we go and drink somewhere else. And I understand it's not much to argue or to rebuttal, but I often always wonder when we use that allegation, how does it benefit? How much value does it bring to the department by saying, okay, you know what? And I understand that you were the victim of circumstances. Those were difficult times. In fact, the light bulb hit about the so-called scandal.
Right.
And you're right. This must have happened. I can tell you right now, just from doing my research, maybe in 1997, right? Yeah. When Special Order Number 1, when Chief Parks came in and said zero tolerance. From this point forward, it doesn't matter what they say, they meaning someone walking in the front lobby, the front desk saying, hey, Mariano and Marlon, we're working 825, and I didn't like the way they looked at me, and they were very rude. Well, what is it that they said? It doesn't matter. The way Mariano flipped his glasses and Marlon was, flicking his, his holster
flap.
Yeah. and it got me nervous, and I just felt like that was very disrespectful. Oh my God, you know what? Let's cut a face sheet and get them through this whole process. So I get that part, but it just sucks to know that we're in the business of not looking good. And by the way, who in the hell made this unwritten 5-year parole rule? Yeah. Like, why is it 5 years? Why can't it be 1 year? Yeah. What do you think?
I think whoever did that's, been long gone since, that department, like, to change things, mindsets on the LAPD, that's something that's been set in stone well before our time. Yeah.
Yes.
So there was, and I've talked to people and.
Do you know anyone that has like a 1 year rule?
No.
Like, is there an unwritten rule? Like, if you're like at Southeast, okay, maybe it's just 2 years, but hey, over here it's 5. No, it's just across the board.
Across the board.
Doesn't that suck?
But it may depend on who the person is.
100%. So it's self-serving.
Yeah. So if it's someone that they want to promote, they probably won't get the same amount of parole.
Right. Out of curiosity, was it you and your partners that were subject to the investigation?
Oh, yeah. There was, I think, 19 of us that got reined in on that. Yeah.
So all 19 of you were accused?
Everybody got at least a cubo out of that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you would know if someone got more than 10 or 2 or... Well, pretty fair, if you will.
I knew that, like, I didn't opt for the border rights.
No.
I just took my 10 and went on my merry way. I know a lot of guys that opted for a board and got it reduced, and good for them. But I know some that got it increased, and then, ultimately what I think the focus of the investigation was to get rid of a certain person, and that was accomplished.
Got it. So essentially it's a bit self-serving.
I believe so, yeah.
And I haven't said this before in any other episode, and I'll say it now. Would you agree with me that there's always one Blue Falcon in every division?
At least.
Right? One.
I mean, so in our chosen profession, the need for self-preservation is like very, very strong in some people, Yeah. So, they're going to do what they do to save their own skin, and that's just the name of the game, or throw somebody else under the bus so they can get the spot that, everybody's vying for. You know what I mean? There's always somebody like that.
100%. Mariano, if I put you in a room right now today, and I gave you the podium, and you have a full room of sergeants that are getting ready to begin their tour in internal affairs, what's the one thing you want them to know about that job?
Well, I was given a piece of golden advice from a supervisor once, and he said, no matter what the situation is, always document it, whether it's the proper way or whether it's the way the department wanted you to do it. If you write down what you did, what you responded to, and how you handled it, they may not like the way you handled it, but at least you handled it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't leave yourself out there by not documenting everything, you know? So, I mean, not everything, in my opinion, had to go to paper, right? There were times where you could talk to the person, because 90% of the time, the person that comes to the station that's irate is more irate about the way they were treated than what actually happened.
Or actual alleged misconduct.
The lack of explanation. Like, I got very few mouth beefs in my day because I would dust people off and explain my actions.
Right.
And it seemed to go a long way. So I think that in that case, you know, if you're a supervisor and you get handed, you know,
A complaint.
yeah, complaint.
An
IA. Well, if it's a legit, you know, you obviously got to do what you got to do.
Correct.
But if it's something that's, talk to the person, get their information, document everything. And it can be just a sergeant's log entry, you know, can be. You know, whether they want to go more from that, well, you have their information, you can do follow-up.
Yeah, spot on. I will say that things need to change. That special order that I just mentioned, it's archaic, man. It's 30 years old and hasn't changed. And, you know, our beloved LAPD suffers from time and effort into something that could be just a sergeant log or a misunderstanding the way they were treated, not necessarily alleged misconduct. But wait, we're in the business that's not looking good. Well, okay, I get that, but maybe perhaps you just misunderstood this officer, you know, maybe their approach, their attitude, their disposition. Those things don't necessarily have to be an IA. I wanted to ask you this. Do you think the job of an internal affairs investigator is to protect cops? What do you think?
I don't. I believe that they're meant to get to the bottom of whatever the allegation is, and that's their job. And I think that our department does a disservice, honestly, by taking supervisors that have never done like investigations. So, you know, they go, "Oh, I've done this many investigations," but until you're actual, in my opinion, I'm biased, you get that detective, you're day one on your detective table, and you got a stack of cases, right? And you start learning how to do investigations at that point. You know, I was lucky enough to get a little bit of acclamation toward that as a quote-unquote detective trainee without the detective trainee title. I was P2 assigned to detectives, but I learned how to do an investigation prior to becoming detective.
No stone goes unturned.
Right. So I think that unfortunately, when they take a person who's, you know, just got the sergeant's background, you know, they don't really scratch much past the surface. You know, they get what they need. And unfortunately, and I've seen it and I've heard it, there are people that go there thinking that they're going to make their next promotion based on how many cases they make. Right?
Or just in the assignment.
Even just the assignment.
It's a feather in the cap.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to promote and it's going to look good when I take the lieutenant exam.
But, you know, we also had the old burn them to learn them mentality on this department. Burn them to learn them. You know, so.
I totally agree. I think your bias is spot on. I honestly don't think that a lot of internal affairs investigators, and I'm being candid here, and I don't think they have the experience.
Well,
and let me add on to that, to investigate serious allegations of misconduct. Follow me with this. If you and I have this, God, I don't even want to say feeling. If you and I, after, let's just say we interviewed one of our colleagues, right? They're accused. Compelled interview, and now we're reviewing all the questions, and we're done. Let's just say we're done, right? And I look at you and say, you know what? I think that when we asked them the questions when they were transporting the arrestee from the station and they got to the heliport in downtown to jail division, you know, they're missing some facts. Or, you know what? It wasn't really clear to me, you know, when they got him out of the car, you know, at the heliport. So I don't know, man. I kind of feel like we're missing something. I'm not going to flat out say that I think they're lying. Maybe sometimes there is that notion they weren't really being truthful. But here's the problem, and it sucks. And by the way, I just want to make clear, it doesn't happen all the time. I just want to, you know, make clear that there's hundreds and hundreds of internal affairs investigations in our beloved LAPD. But you're going to get that one where, okay, great, we do that, and next we turn it in, right? Or we go to our boss and say, we need to do a subsequent interview. And then, maybe they'll say something like, okay, roger that. Or you turn it in because you have a goal, right?
And you got to meet your deadlines.
You got to meet your deadlines. And then at the 364th day, you see this accused employee with a false statement. I just don't think we're that experienced enough to know, or do we stand up to our bosses and say, this is just not right? What do you think?
Well, I think obviously in a perfect world, we'd have all that, right? But ever since the inception of the onboard in-car video and they can go back and they can record excerpts of conversations, and like I was never part of that. Thank God.
Right.
But I think there's more evidence available to today's investigators than there were back in the day.
Okay.
So, you'd have their statement, right? And you'd have some guy that, blatantly lying, and you're like trying to tell him telepathically, come on, dude, it's not worth your job to lie about this, right? It's a big nothing, but you're too scared and you're going to lie about it, right? And so I think falls a lot on, on supervision on the department too.
That's what I was going to say, if I may interject. Who do we hold accountable for not being completely, I'm not going to say honest, but not being very thorough, if you will?
Well, I think that a lot of times, as a supervisor, and you see it, like people are spending too much, what you think is too much time on an investigation. Where come on, let's get this done, let's get it out, get going. And, I had one situation where we had a Leary investigation come out of use of force.
Okay.
And it was kind of a weird situation, but I'd never done Leary before. And
Correct.
The rep shows up and says, hey, you need to be ordered to write this report. And I'm like, okay. I was the guy that was going to write the report that night.
Okay.
And he tells my sergeant's like, I already need to write the report. Okay. I thought it was just a matter of, process or whatever. Right? So write the report. Well, lo and behold, I had to put a heading in there that said that I was ordered to write this report. I didn't really think anything of it, but when that got to the DA's office, they looked like, whoa, what do you mean he was ordered to write this report? Like, they didn't want to touch it. And this guy was a 3-time loser. He's a bad dude.
Right.
And he walked on that case. They didn't file that case because of that line.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And then it started this, like, I remember walking into the station the next day and a hush falling detectives, like, oh, there's the guy that wrote the report, didn't want to write the report. And like, I was forced to write it, right? And I was like, why is everybody treating me like an alien all of a sudden? And one of the other officers was all calling me at home, threatening he was going to fight me. And I was like, what the heck is going on with this case, right? So, that was inexperience in my opinion, right? Like, and we learned from it. So as a sergeant, it happens to me. And I get that phone call at 3 a.m. after I completed my use of force and everything, got the guy checked by him, our suspect checked by him, FD, okay to book, right? Take him, book him. Well, he ends up passing out downtown in a jail cell. His lungs filling up with fluid from this use of force.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, and I'm like, hey, when we got to the station, your report is your statement. Don't go off the statement. Get representation. Go off your report. Tell my guys, because it can go ugly. And everybody involved got sued federally on that one.
Okay.
However, somehow I skated because the attorney didn't mention my name in time. And when I got subpoenaed, he's like, oh, well, he should have been an accused. And they're like, you missed your opportunity. So I was a witness on that one.
Okay.
But, and that was a total, complete mess. However, I'd learned from way back when it happened to me, like, hey, this is your statement, stick to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Get your attorney, get your representation. Don't give up any extra information.
Now, the Leary, just so we educate our audience here, LERI, that stands for law enforcement related injury. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically if the suspect ends up being hospitalized, admitted, right? Hey, they're admitted. By the way, that could happen in the first couple hours. That can happen overnight.
Yep.
And next, it's a critical incident. It's an FID call out. You were involved in that. as an officer the first time around?
As the first time around, I was
Okay, so it was an officer.
yeah. So there was definitely a learning
Right.
curve.
So you didn't even know
Right.
that perhaps, well, one, it's a critical incident. Two, that anything that you say can be used against you in criminal proceedings.
Right.
Right. Unless you're ordered. But no one bothered to explain to you what ordering means, meaning you're being libargered.
Yeah.
Which means essentially it's your firewall. Hey, anything that you write down or say to the department cannot be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceedings. And you didn't know that, but you knew that as a sergeant.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it was interesting. It was an interesting learning curve, and that's the thing with your experience on the department. You learn. You pick up the good stuff, you discard the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have some really good supervisors in your career that you can learn from.
Yeah, you know what? And going back to the, accusing someone of like a false statement or something very serious, misleading, or even like a horrible cubo, right? I feel as if, and I'm leaning on you from your experience of working autos or working as a detective or even working as a P2 working gangs, right? As detectives filing cases, no stone goes unturned doing your job. And you can agree with me or maybe not, but I don't think that a lot of IA investigators do that no stone goes unturned. I don't think so. Have you had an experience, and I'm going to lean on your assignment as a detective, right? Have you had an experience where you're like, that dude's lying? Or maybe I think that they're like misleading me, but you're going in there with all this evidence to say, hey, dude, I got you. I'm trying to get a confession here, or they'll go tell you to pound sand, either lying to you or, hey, I want my attorney. What do you think?
Well, I agree with that. On that first caper as P2, one of the other officers involved, or two of the other officers involved, weren't fully coming forward with their role.
So they weren't really transparent.
Right. But this was at the beginning stages.
Got it.
And, they were patrol. We had a gang supervisor, and they talked, and my supervisor came back to me and says, hey, someone's missing something here. So you go talk to these people and make sure that, they get their mind right. Because, the quote-unquote cat was out of the bag, so to speak.
Yeah.
The notification's been made and all that.
Got it.
And so, we went and had a chat, and they came forward. Oh, hey, Sarge, what had happened was, and they massaged it out, right? So there was no. It was by the time it got to where his pen was hitting paper, everything was worked out.
Okay.
But initially, they were kind of maybe not fully, informed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because well, not only that. Look, I would never want to call over a colleague's a liar
Right,
when I'm interviewing
for sure.
you, but I will say, like the example earlier, right? Hey, man, when I asked you questions about the transport from the station to the heliport in jail division, there wasn't really clarity, so I got to ask you again. And
Right.
my point is that I don't think as IA investigators we do a very good job to do the follow-ups, to do the subsequent interviews, so we can get some clarity. So when we turn it into our bosses, the adjudicator saying, "Look, man, you got a full 100% every single stone turned investigation."
Well, I agree with that. I think that, and it can't be before every, right? If you're a sergeant one working patrol division and you want to go to IA and you apply and you get selected and all that, great, good for you. But I think that they should undergo a little bit more training as far as investigations go, because as a table detective, if you're out there doing your job, you're interviewing people daily, and you pick up on those lies and you pick up on the tells, and you're like, so. It goes hand in hand, right? So, like, if as a supervisor, if you're not really picking up on those, you should be able to pick up on those.
100%. I think you owe it. You owe it to not just yourself, but you owe it to the department.
Well, I think that's where the department falls short. I think the department should offer a little bit more. Like, okay, for instance, when I went to MEU, I had to take a week long course on MEU.
Right.
It wasn't just like you hit the ground running, because you have to learn all that stuff, 5150 stuff that, the basics in patrol, but there's so much that went into that job that I didn't even know. I didn't realize that, all the different aspects of what MEU entails, right? So that's a week-long course for newbies.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that should be the minimum. I'm not sure what's out there, but, I'm not saying that even every table detective is going to be that great, because a lot of, truthfully, a lot of people go to make detectives so they can get Monday through Friday weekends off.
100%.
So
NIA too.
Yeah. So I think, it all depends on what that person's motivation is.
100%.
But I think that when you're in a situation, internal affairs, and you have someone's career, in the balance, you owe it to that person to do a complete and thorough investigation.
Especially when we're accusing you of lying.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty serious.
Especially when lying is so perception based.
Of course. I mean, it's got to be well thought out.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I don't, and this is just me, because I've been teaching up and down the state of California, so I certainly don't want to say it's just our beloved LAPD. It's a lot of agencies. It's happening nationwide. When you decide, you meaning the brass, command staff, or even the investigator, but more so the adjudicators, when you are trying to make that decision, I think that they're lying, you know what? You need to really have a full-fledged, full-body discussion as to why do you think that they're lying, 1, 2, and how are we going to investigate and get that lie that you feel, and we can't go off feelings here, It's got to be concrete, Right. Give me something. Hey, if you truly are trying to deceit, right? If it's benefiting you from being deceitful during that compelled interview, okay, cool. I need to find that out.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
You, yeah.
But if I get a feeling, I think they're lying. I just read all that. I think they're lying. Hold on a second. Did you listen to all the audio? It's the other problem.
Yeah. Oh,
I got a buddy of mine. Yeah, I got a buddy of mine who's going to come in, and he's got another LAPD alum who's very strong opinion about the paraphrase statement and the audio. He feels as though, forget the paraphrase statement. You know what? You're getting paid big bucks, man, as a lieutenant, as a captain, as a commander, as a chief. Hell, you got adjutants. You got Sergeant 2, aide. You got adjutant. Bro, you got 5 entities. You know what? Oh, I'm swamped. Don't you? Everybody says that. Oh my God, I'm swamped. Okay, everybody's swamped. Mm-hmm. Take the time to really listen to all the audio and make a determination. Then you owe it to not only the individual, but you owe it to the department.
No, I agree. One thing I'd be remiss if I didn't say is I heard on another interview about asking somebody what their opinion about IA, mm-hmm. and they were talking about transparency and all that other stuff, which I totally agree with. But for me, what stuck in my craw always about internal affairs, and it wasn't really them making the call, granted, mm-hmm. but if someone in command staff gets in trouble for the same thing that a lower rank does, they should get equal or more of a punishment, because if anybody knows better, they know better. And I know so many examples of those people that just skated because of who they were.
Yeah. I've asked some guests, especially command staff that I come in here, is there a double standard? And so far the answer has been yes.
Yeah, it's unfair. And
yeah,
when when a police officer sees that.
Yeah, I think, you know what? You bring such a good point, because we just got done talking about the 5-year parole rule, mm-hmm. the unwritten rule, right? I'm a 4-year P2, and I'm trying to make FTO. I'm trying to make stripes. I'm trying to get stripes. I got this incident that happened, and I got to wait 5 years. So someone tells you, you know what? Let some time go by. For whatever reason, it's got to be 5 years.
Be 5 years,
right? But if the same, let's take your incident. Let's just say it was a captain there.
Yeah.
Drinking underneath the tree with the boys hanging out.
Yeah.
It's sad to say this, is he or she probably, I don't know, or maybe pepper penalty, and you move on.
Yep.
And next you know, they get promoted, right? And that's the frustration, which is one of the reasons to have a podcast, to have these conversations, right. Because if you want transparency, here's where you have it. And I appreciate that. I'm not trying to, bash or, saying, how effed up the department is, or you shouldn't have done that. Hey, man, it happens everywhere. It happens in all professions. But I suppose that if we can talk about it and have a conversation. And let's be honest, especially when you preach transparency,
or integrity,
or accountability. Those three words, and again, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. And you know what the saddest part about this whole thing is that incident you were involved in, what, in 1997?
Mm-hmm.
That was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's sad to say that won't be the last time something like that will happen.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, we step in our own mess most of the time.
Accountability is big.
Yeah, and to be honest, looking back, of that whole incident, there was only one person, or there were two people that weren't fully truthful about the situation.
Okay.
Right. So they got two of them got like line and 9 hung on them. Right.
Okay. So they got a false statement.
Two of them did. One of them lost his career, and the other one had already been hired by another department. So that was kind of the reason for the buyout to begin with, was two guys were leaving the department.
Okay.
That's what it was. So, whether it affected them where they went, I have no idea.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up again, because I forgot to ask you, how long did it take?
The whole investigation?
From the time that the incident happened until the time you were told, hey, you're going to get 10 days to the beach.
Well, I'd already transferred.
Okay.
By the time I was served with my 10 days.
Okay.
And but
was it close to a year?
Over a year.
It was over a year. Yeah. Okay. So you truly do know the punishment's really the process.
Yeah. You're right.
Because you knew you were going to get, it's going to be sustained.
Oh yeah, I signed off on it. I said,
You're like,
just give me my days.
yeah.
Actually, I asked for the citation. I said,
right,
give me the citation.
Yeah.
But
and I suppose those are the lessons learned.
Yep.
That's my thinking, right? Hey, why do I have to wait over a year? A year.
Oh, you
I
tell
get
the
it.
truth.
It was 19. Totally get that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
But you go and you tell the truth.
Yes.
Right. And you still have the perception of being how was it? So I was being looked at for the gang unit at the division I went to.
Yes.
And I still hadn't taken my days, and my application was given to the CEO of detectives, and he said, "No, this guy lacks integrity." That's what he said. This guy lacks integrity. I'm like, I told the truth. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And so, long story short, that person got in trouble for an integrity issue, which I thought was poetic justice. But and then I was soon therefore selected and went in the gang unit. Had a great time working there. But I rode the pine for a few months. It's untouchable.
Shitty feeling.
Oh yeah, very shitty.
It affected you,
especially since you want to be out there, doing what you want to do.
1, 2. I understand. I mean, we're reflecting on this today,
right.
And I can ask you, did it hit you, emotionally, mentally? I mean, you didn't think about it. You can't. I mean, I'm asking you as you reflect on it now. It's pretty shitty. My point is that Did you have an out to go talk to someone about this? Because remember, you're ordered not to talk about it.
Right. As far as the investigation, right? But
I'm not talking about just waiting around.
Right. But you as you're going through it and stuff, and people know, like you're involved in some bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't go into specifics, but you can kind of get around it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, emotionally, having taken 13 P3 orals, getting the door slammed in my face every time, kind of deadened the feeling to the point to where I'm like, I've resolved myself like at P2 for life kind of mentality. And police officers, I still had that in the back of my mind. Oh, some BS I got, hinkered up with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but as time progresses, you really have time to think about it. You have time to reflect about it, and you have to time. That's when you come. You know what? That was my fault. My bad.
Yeah. No. Totally.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So and accountability comes with it. Like when full ownership of it.
Yeah.
You can say, yeah, I did it, and then do the same thing the next weekend, right? But when you learn from your behavior, that's when full accountability is there.
100%. Don't feel so bad. I took about, I want to say 15 or 16 P3 orals. I was up there with you, bro. They're hard to come by.
Yeah,
to this very day, they're so hard to come by.
When we used to have to take a test to take a P3 oral.
Yes.
And
and you're trying. Okay, let's move on. I got to ask you this because I've been thinking about this lately. Do you really think that we're family, or are we just employees in a corporation?
Well,
what do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
I think to the department, we're just a number.
Okay.
I think to each other, I think what you define as family, everybody has their own definition of what family is.
So we could be family.
Yeah, I mean, I had partners that we to this day, and other coworkers and stuff. I care about everybody. That I go see people all over the place,
Right.
But I think that when you can't help but feel an affinity toward the same person that's going through the same thing you're going through.
Right.
And you guys, whoever you and your partners have gone through it.
Yeah.
And you know what it's about, right?
Yes.
So, but I also think that that can also be a double-edged sword, because I think that when all you do is hang out with police officers, there becomes this like this us versus them mentality versus the public.
Yeah.
And it gets very easy to always side with your own people, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've been very fortunate. I think what kept me grounded is I'm very good friends with people I went to junior high school with. Ever since I moved to where I live, 40, 50-year relationships with friends and talking to them and keeping them they keep me grounded. They provide that outsider's perspective that I didn't think about that, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think we do it to ourselves, but I think that honestly, there are, I do believe that amongst ourselves, we do consider each other family.
Yeah, there's an inner circle within your unit where you guys are really true thin blue line.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting to, because I don't buy it. I think we're somewhat hypocritical about what we do.
You talking about the department? Or the police?
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about just law enforcement in
the profession?
Oh, yeah, 100%. We're fortunate because we come from a big organization. You're right. You can be in Wall Street Detectives, and you got your little crew, gangs. You got your little crew. You got your little unit. But we preach what? The thin blue line.
Yeah.
But the minute you they cut paper on you.
Who's
well,
calling?
hold on a second. We're not a thin blue. Even that lieutenant. The get lieutenant. Even you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I suppose it's I suppose there's levels to this thin blue line, because we're not a thin blue line when you get an IA. That's the point I'm trying to make.
To an extent.
To an extent. Well,
I know of several instances where people were relieved of duty and other people in the department, find them off-duty jobs, helping them to be able to support their family, throwing them lifelines out there.
Yes.
There's so many people that'll do that.
100%.
And it just...
I agree. My thinking is, if you're in a small to medium-sized agency, that's got to even be shitty, because think about it. If you have 30 in your agency, hell, I'll even go, let's just go with 80, 100. Pick any. Alhambra, Claremont, El Monte, Downey.
Right.
Let's just say those. You guys are, listen, you guys are all a thin blue line, right? Christmas just happened. Someone's wearing the Santa Claus hat. Chief comes in, I'm going to take your shift because you're a great worker, Mariano. Oh, by the way, it's Thanksgiving. Wednesday, get off at 3, bro. Get off early because you're a great worker. But hold on a second. What? You got an IA?
No.
I can't talk to you anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So now you're in the island all by yourself. That's what I mean. But yeah, you're right. A big organization like, Dallas, NYPD, LA County, us, yes, we are one family together. But when you start getting to the adjudication level, I'm going to call bullshit. I don't think that we're really that thin blue line that we always claim that we are.
Yeah, I agree to an extent.
Yeah.
But with a lot of those smaller agencies, like they have, let's just call it a recreation center available to their officers, right? Now, off hours, whatever they want. I've been in these establishments.
Recreation centers.
Yes. And, as a department, it's not incumbent upon them. But if they had a release for officers, and they went someplace where it was okay to go, after hours or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, payday Wednesdays up the academy. I'm talking about go out, blow off steam, whatever.
Yeah.
I've been in these recreation halls that have pool tables, dartboards, whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
Good way to burn off, whatever, the shift, whatever. But, I learned about choir practice on probation. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, this is part of it, and it was part of the culture, and I didn't necessarily shy away from it, but I took my lumps, and then down the road, you end up getting married, and you don't do that stuff anymore. You find your excuse to get out of there. But
great conversation, bro. The one question I don't like to ask, but I do like to ask: worst incident in your career?
I would say the night that Chuck Lazaretto, the Glendale detective, was killed in Devonshire Division. I was assigned to Devonshire Division, and when that call went down, we're riding 3 deep in my crash unit, and we were actually coming to the station as the call came out. So we're starting to back up. Another officer that was working Devonshire Vice, he was in uniform, came running out, jumped in our car. We jammed down there. We're the first unit on scene, and the officer from Vice and one of my other partners went up to meet Lazaretto's partner. I believe his name was Art Frank, and he was in a state of shock. And they, come on, let's go in there, rescue my partner. And, his intentions were well, but not very well thought out. And my partner and I decided to run down the side of the building and capture basically a perimeter of sorts. Make sure nobody came out of the rear. Have you ever know about that caper?
I do. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked, because I want to say the brothers I played soccer with in a soccer league in Balboa Park. So we never really talked about the incident, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a suspect in high ground inside the warehouse, and you guys were trying to do a...
Well, I wasn't part of the rescue team.
There was a rescue because the partner was shot, and...
They didn't know what his condition was.
Right.
But he was backlit by, I believe it was like a Coke or Pepsi machine or whatever. Right. And
yeah, so for the purposes of the audio, let me kind of paint the picture a little bit. So here's this warehouse in Chatsworth. Yeah. Right? Shout out to the 818. And essentially the suspect was on high ground.
He was on a catwalk.
He was on the catwalk where when the officers came in, he pretty much is blasted.
Yeah. Maybe 5 to 7 foot shot. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were going in, and my partner had gone in with Detective Frank, and she put her light to kind of shine, and it was shot out of her hand, and they retreated at that point because the suspect started shooting rounds or whatever. So they backed out. More and more people started to get there. It just so happened like Devonshire Division was on some sort of training or whatever, and we had a lot of outside officers that were working there on loan. So when people figured out how to get there, they got there, and then the teams were made and the rescue plan was hatched, and they went in and did what they did. My partner and I were in the back, and there was a big pull-down aluminum door, and we were kind of hunkered down behind this old Ford truck. And when they went in to do their rescue, they laid out some rounds to give the officers, not knowing the guy was right above them. They went in, they got fired on, they got hit, and luckily, nobody got very injured, but they had all their safety gear on and whatnot, and they tried, they didn't make it, so they backed out, and then SWAT was en route, and SWAT came and did what they did, and we were all at the command post when they brought Detective Lazaretto's body out on the hood of a car, and I remember on black and white, and I remember seeing that and just like it stuck with me, and then we got to walk through with RHD later on, and yeah, they had no way of knowing, what they were walking into, but yeah.
I at times when guests tell me stories, I often always say, if you want to know what police work is like, this is what the career is about. You're going to get into it. You're going to see things, right? You're going to be witnessing incidents that are going to stay with you for the rest of your life, and that's what being a cop, right? That's what you're getting yourself into. I mean, there's a lot of benefits. You are risking your life, and you are going to see these tragic, horrible incidents that are going to stick with you for something that happened close to almost 30 years ago. Yeah. So I appreciate that, man. Well, hey, man, let's leave on a good note. I got to ask, so you're enjoying
retirement?
Well, we already know that every day is a Saturday. Right? That's what retirement is, right? Yeah. Feels every day is a Saturday. That's what I've been told, and they're absolutely right. But the goatee, was it somewhere that you wanted to work, like narco, or
no? I worked narco. I got to have. Yeah.
Did you have what you have now?
Not as big.
Okay, so you're enjoying it.
Yeah, just what actually happened on this caper right here with my hair and my beard is my brother and I, we had a bet with each other.
Okay.
Who was gonna not go the longest without a haircut.
Okay.
So
who's winning?
I'm winning right now at the moment. Well, his hair is longer, but my beard was longer, so.
That's awesome. Hey, man, thank you for coming down. I'm going to leave the floor up to you. Well, first and foremost, are we doing anything special in retirement or just enjoying, not waking up at dark 30 to, make it to roll call?
Where I left at was supposed to be just a stop to find another job.
Okay.
I wanted out of narcotics, and it was the first place I could get into. And it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I went to MEU, and it had changed way. Oh, I don't know if you remember, one and done, those guys used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
It requested a unit, not available.
I used to answer phones. Not many people know that.
Yeah.
I was an MEU answering phones. So I know the bank, the telephone bank.
Right. So Bixler came and he changed the place.
Yes.
And
Shout out to Brian Bixler.
Yeah. When I went there, it was actually a blessing, and I got to know a lot of people, all the clinicians from mental health, and it turned out to be a blessing. I went through a divorce, and it was like free therapy. So I had a partner that was a supervisor at MU, and we would drive around, go call, and I would just vent to her. So poor woman got her ear chewed off for a little bit, but it was good for me then. And I ended up staying toward the end to the end because it was a good job. Yeah. And I actually had, like, when we get on the job, we come on and we say, I come on the job to help people, whatever the spiel was you gave to come in the department. But, as a young copper chasing bad guys, gang members specifically, drug dealers, those were like, I'm doing society a favor by getting these people off the street, right? I drank the Kool-Aid on that one. I was all about it. And then fast forward, I go, slow down. As a matter of fact, Bixler asked me, he's like, you've done this. Why do you want to come here? And I told him, hey, honestly, I seen all the D3s here long in the tooth, and I'm looking to promote, So that never happened, but I went there. I was honest about it, and I actually had a great time working with all, learning what can really be done with that unit.
Yes.
And what I was going to say was at that assignment, I really got a sense of actually helping people because until you roll to that call where they have a family member that's high functioning autistic or whatever the case may be, whatever they're suffering from, mental illness, that family's at wit's end. They've been dealing with their whole lives, and sometimes they don't even know that there are options out there for them, different types of programs that they can get involved in. Resources. So you get to give them that, and you get to bring them a little bit of peace. If you have to remove their loved one for a 5150 hold, or you come up with a safety plan, whatever the case may be. I just felt like I did a lot more. I felt like I helped people a lot more.
Yeah, more purpose.
And it was kind of more personal, right? The residents of whatever North Hills got to sleep a little better, knowing that I'd taken a couple guys off the street. Yeah. But I just felt like I got a little bit more bang for my buck there.
Yeah, no, 100%. You couldn't have said it any better. It's just one of my guests did say this is, what do you want to help people? There's plenty of jobs to help people, and that's what you're describing. I think that's phenomenal to have that purpose, right? To have that relevance that you really truly are helping people. Where in our job, hey man, it's sometimes it's survival. Yeah. And by the way, just for the record, to talk about our boy Brian Bixler, probably one of the best classes I've taken, the mental health intervention training, 40-hour mandated course. Right? They made it mandated. It's probably the best. As you know, I'm an instructor myself, and look, that death by PowerPoint or that check the box, it's not that class, and that's probably one of the better classes. That LAPD officer. So shout out to MEU. I'm going to leave it up to you. Any advice that you have for anyone that wants to come on the job, what advice do you have for them?
Be honest with yourself, number one. Protect yourself. Make sure that you're documenting everything, because you might, have what you think is the best partner on earth, and they may not turn out to be such. So, protect yourself. But I'm not saying go be a snitch. I'm just saying, like, when you see something, call it out. Something that you don't like, something that's not right. You owe it to yourself to call it out, because if you want to do this job, you want the longevity, you're gonna have to do it. Sooner or later, it's gonna come your way, and you're gonna have to confront it.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for coming, man. I really appreciate it. We're gonna wrap it up. Like always, Happy New Year. Please be safe out there, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.